Hey everybody, it is Riot. I'm in space. I'm using weird backgrounds because I'm weird. I've brought together two entertaining people from my past and other endeavors of my history who just happen to be working for the same comic book company and are doing very Canadian stories right now involving the mythos, the history, the legend of Captain Canuck. So I'm going to bring in a person you've met on my videos before, Adrien Benson, who I convinced to be in Muppet Pastor, and Dan Collins, who like 20 years ago I went to college with for radio, and technically I guess that's what we're doing these days. We screwed up the video. I had to do it twice, so it's a mess. We're going to talk about Canadian stuff. We're going to talk about their comics, the concept of writing comics, and then we're going to play some really terrible clips from really terrible Canadian film, if you can call it that, movies that were made to fill in CanCon and Canadian television in the 80s and 90s, as well as a journey into the gross world of Kraft dinner flavor boosters. Oh, it doesn't really work on here. Oh, there we go. Leave a comment and I'll send out some flavor boosters to people. Why the hell not? Here's Dan Collins and Adrien Benson. Thanks for listening. Also, we timed it just perfectly to end when the free use of Zoom ends when you have more than two people on there because I'm cheap. So join our Patreon and then maybe I can actually pay for something. You know, just push it in there, push it in. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm just going to admit my own faults here. Instead of introing anything and saying anything worthwhile, I'm just going to say this is Riot at the Movies. I'm a moron. I recorded a 30-minute bit with these two gentlemen here, and we had this nice effect where I had got them to meet face to face for the first time. So it had this real just rolling with it type of atmosphere, but I didn't press record. So now we're going to fake the whole thing and pretend that we've never met before.
Dan, great to meet you.
Adrien, it is such a pleasure to finally be meeting you.
Both of these weirdos are writing comics for Comics House, which originally Chapter House, both being very Canadian by working with the legendary comic book character Captain Canuck. Dan has a series that is the West Coast Canuck, and Adrien has, I guess, well, I'm using the same videos before, so we can go right through this the same way as before, where I can press play and play that little photo that I had for Canuck Beyond, which now instead of asking you what is it about, even that I've read the first two issues of it, I'm just going to summarize that. So actually, what I will bring up with this is it's not in the really far future. This takes place in an element of a storyline that happened with Captain Canuck that blasted him off to another planet, as I did say earlier, as a John Carter of Mars, Adam Strange, Buck Rogers type of story, except I guess Buck Rogers is the future. But, you know, other than that.
It's like, yeah, sorry, please. You were doing so well.
No, go ahead, Adrien.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of glad this was all screwed up. Gives me a chance to do a better pitch. But like, I think the idea of this John Carter for Mars kind of thing, but it's like Robinson Crusoe sort of, man is marooned, but instead of marooned on a desert island, he's marooned on another planet. So after invasion, he ends up blasted through what's known as the shimmer, which is this sort of, the way I described it to Keith, the editor, was like, it's like the fascia in your muscles. So if you've got like that, it's that thing that you kind of pass in between worlds, and it's, I don't know, like the superconductor that binds the force. You could call it the force.
Let us connecting when I brought up the fact that he sort of looks like Canadian Darth Maul. And...
no, honestly, I'm starting to. I'm worried about George Lucas's legal team. I'm kidding. So he ends up on this planet, and he finds out that there's a tyrannical ruler who has taken over the planet, and basically has harnessed the Shimmer, which on this planet is a very prized resource. It's something they've managed, unlike the rest of the galaxy. They haven't been able to use it really. They can most of the humanity hasn't been able to use it. Sorry. This planet has managed to turn it into almost like a light rail system, using portals to get to and from across the planet, basically. So anyway, when he shows up, the portals are all under control of this tyrannical ruler, this mysterious shadow figure behind the curtain, and Canuck ends up teaming up with this band of scrappy rebels from all different parts of the planet, and they decide they're going to take on this ruler and take their planet back, basically. It's a way better pitch.
That's great.
And also, I was like, oh, so it's based on the original. So it's taking the Canuck, the Canuck character, but blending it with, and Dan, you had brought up the Oban, Freeman, and Connolly comic from, and remind me again, it was 81? What?
81, 82-ish, Captain Canuck, issue 11 is where it started.
That's which is such a trippy, like I read them just to kind of get into that story and sort of understand where it was coming from, but that kind of sci-fi fantasy, very odd. It's like everyone's kind of tripping on mushrooms throughout that whole thing.
Well, and I was going to bring that up. Those type of characters that, I don't know, they almost seem like everyone's half designed World of Warcraft / Second Life characters.
Sure.
How many of them existed before this storyline?
You mean before the current Canuck Beyond? Sorry, go on.
Are those characters original, or are they from that time period from before with the reference of the Beyond?
Yeah, they are definitely, like, all those characters. And I mean, Dan, you've read the original comics, so I'm guessing, like, and I don't know if you've read the newest, this one, but all the characters are basically just taken and updated. So,
don't put me on the spot.
It's all good. I realized I was like, crap, but didn't mean to do that. But anyway, he like Elodil, Brant, Sandadar, all these characters are back, but they're basically now, you don't need to have read the original. If you haven't, you'll get it.
Well, then that brings us to the next one, which, again, remind me, we're coming out in September for West Coast Canuck.
September, correct.
September. And that is Dan Collins. And as you mentioned, when I screwed this up and recorded it, that this came around because you were pitching a story for the West Coast Canuck during a novel pitch, which ended up just amalgamating into other stories, and now here you are with a new story coming out that also takes place after Invasion as well.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
All of that is correct. Do I need to say anything more?
Well, what I will ask is, as someone who's only picked up a couple issues over, like, back in the day, or in, like, quarter bins at different stores, a random Captain Canuck here or there, I knew that different people have worn the mask and worn the mantle, but I didn't know the difference between David, the West Coast, and Tom, our coast, I guess. But how long has David existed as a character?
David Semple was first published, I believe, in 2006, 2007. And the Unholy Captain Canuck, the Unholy War, which was written by Drew, and it's from Drew and Riel Langlois. And it was the first time that somebody other than Richard Comley really took over the reins of a Captain Canuck series. So they've been around for a few years. Right. He's been around for a few years, yeah.
It's because it's one of those characters that, like, if for even Americans, they know that the character exists, but they don't know anything of it, and their mind of, like, that it's just really plastic Captain America stories done with maple leaf on their chest.
Yeah, I can give you a quick. So, like Tom Evans, the original from the 70s and 80s, he's your typical like Silver Age-ish character. You know, he's the manly man, and you know, a little bit of humor, but not much. It's mostly serious stories, but like with a fun kind of vibe. Then in the 90s, they rebooted him with Darren Oak, who is now the current Captain Canuck in the Captain Canuck continuity because Tom Evans is currently in space. And Darren Oak, this one takes place in the real world. So it's set like in the real world, not in some futuristic thing like the original series. The original series was set in the far future of 1993. So, so this one takes place, this one was written in 93. Captain Canuck Reborn, written in like 93, takes place in like 93. And it's just Darren Oak is a regular guy. He's basically Batman, a rich guy with a lot of tools whose brother is trying to take over the world. So he's trying to stop him.
And we were discussing, or on this specific story you've got coming up is done with kind of a murder mystery concept done on a train, which I made the Archer joke saying the time that they got stuck on a train and had to find out which Mounties were bad and which were good Mounties. A real Canadian thing though, because of the fact that, you know, you can take a train across the prairies and just feels like it goes on and on forever. So the last thing you want is a murder to happen on there. What are some of the other characters you've got appearing in your first issue of that?
So the characters in my series, the main characters are the Steeltown Hammer, who's been around in some of the other Captain Canuck issues from the Chapter House days. Brian Dwyer, he's kind of like a bit of an a-hole. And, you know, he's a surly guy who's mostly out for himself, does some good stuff when he can. But, you know, and then we have David Semple. So the Steeltown Hammer has retired from crime fighting, but he's on this train going to visit some family. And then we have this David Semple's a CSIS agent who's on the train for a case. And then there's Kip Keen, who is an old character from like the 30s or 40s that's in the public domain, who is making his his Lev Gleason Comics House debut, and he's an RCMP officer. And so the three of them have to come together to solve this supernatural-ish murder mystery that's happening.
That clears up a whole bunch of my thoughts of just seeing the cover, because at the beginning, my question was going to be, wait, so is David Semple a Mountie these days? But that's not David. So now I understand.
No.
Now I know who's who on there. It would really be weird if the guy with the hammer wasn't the Steeltown Hammer.
He's just some other guy with a hammer.
Hammer, right? Yeah, he's just from Hamilton.
Yes, right.
So we were with that, and it was fun on the last time we did this when I'm being, you know, putting myself on the tracks here and saying I ruined the fun of when you took over and said you wanted to interview Adrien.
Yeah.
Because I outed
have more
him.
questions for Adrien if you want.
Oh, sure, go ahead. But my point was that I outed him as not being a comic book guy, that he was a film and stage and a film student. So he was much more higher crust than when I first met him and made him take his shirt off for a movie called Muppet Pastor. So
still my crowning achievement.
Right, sure. What other questions do you have then, Dan? Go ahead.
Well, in our previous discussion, Adrien, you mentioned that you've done a lot of writing for film. And I was going to ask, how do you think, what's the difference between comics and film writing, the scripting process?
That's an amazing question, because I think ultimately there's a freedom to comics that I don't get. Because the stuff I've written in film has been for my own thing to direct. So to be honest, my experience is with both is really specific. So when it comes to comics, there's a certain, you know, you're not creating this own little world like I would in film. You are, and you even pointed out when you were talking about West Coast Canuck, is you're bringing in, there's a mythology, there's a continuity, there's canon, there's how do you respect the past, and dealing with telling a 80-page, I guess in this case it's a 4-issue series of like, here's a story, and then also bringing in all these elements that have to keep things moving on this. But like, we don't know where this is going to end up, but we have to respect what has come before. We have to set certain things up. So that was new. Another thing that I found, I don't know if you find this as well with comics, is there is the sense of discovery. Like each issue, like I kind of had a sense of where it was going to end up, but really the things in between, there was this like, okay, you just get this issue done. I hadn't mapped out every issue super specifically before I'd written them. So it was like, this issue is going to happen, this issue, this is going to happen. So by the 4th issue, we know how it's going to end, but all that in between, there was a lot more sense of discovery than with film. It was a lot more like, it is directed to the it's controlled, and I wouldn't have even started without knowing every beat. So that's the big difference for me.
And you don't have to like write part of your idea and then go, wait, I could never afford to film that. Erase.
The biggest point. Yeah, that's the biggest point.
You write them, and then the artist says, I'm not drawing that. Are you crazy? And then you're like, okay, we won't have a fight in a giant snowstorm, or, we won't have here this 10,000 character spread. I guess we'll put it down to 2 characters.
Well, that's the wonder of writing for somebody else. Like with Adrien and I both like writing stuff for self-produced films and that. So we know, and we're the only person who later on set is going to go, oh, why the fuck did I write that? I couldn't do that. That's impossible. But if you were like in a studio, you could write that to them. And they're like, no, we're not funding that. Rewrite it. And like, okay, at least I spent my day rewriting it. You're not second guessing yourself the whole time. And with a comic book, at least you have the ability to say, all right, this is what I want to do. Send it out. Have them send, their publisher, your artist, and that send it back, and then tell you you're insane. But yeah, at least you can rest for a couple of hours waiting for that response, and then go, okay, I know where I need to go rewrite this, because I'm not alone in this project, which is a wonderful thing.
One of the things, Adrien, that you said there, the discovery. My favorite part of writing is when a character changes what you were planning to do, because you get to a spot and the character's like, no, I'm not going to do what you said I'm going to do. Like, I actually think I'm going to do something different. And you're like, you know what? This doesn't fit the character. We do have to go in a different direction. Yeah. And that's my favorite.
Yeah, it's the best. Sorry, my dog is currently barking.
I think someone was fighting outside of my house a second ago.
Adam, are you peeking in his window?
Yeah, that's me making the dog bark.
It's the Golden Girls pillow. It's after me.
Adrien, I do have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Which is visually, when you're writing for film and writing for comics, like, how do you find it similar? Because you're writing like in comics, like you are writing very descriptive things of what you want the artist to portray, right?
Yeah. This is so interesting, because like in film they teach you, I don't know, the rule books will be like, don't describe too much. You want to leave it open with a certain level of like, it's almost like, there he is.
Hey,
there's Augie. There's a certain level of, it's almost like you're playing a weird game with every department where you're like, I'm going to suggest a world as opposed to, and then you'll interpret it. There's this really, like, if you were to describe too much, like a shot, you would be insulting the cinematographer, for instance. But in comics, and as far as my experience goes, saying like, we're going to do this in a close-up, like I would like this panel to be a close-up of, or an insert of this character doing this thing, or a full page spread. Like I can make that call and we can have that discussion. But in film, I would never dare to say like, we're going to do a tracking shot. Like, it's like, yeah, or that it's going to last. Augie, seriously. I know you want.
It's fine. He's fine.
He's fine. Yes, Augie. So anyway, that would be the big difference, I think, is the amount of
interesting
you can give. Like, do you find that in comics? Like, you can give. Do you give a lot of direction when you write? No.
I find that I maybe sometimes don't give enough direction, because there's follow-ups like, okay, but what did you want to do with this panel? But alternately, that does leave you open to being like pleasantly surprised when you see like, you know, you're just like the characters are doing this, but you don't put in anything super specific. And then the artist gives you this like dynamic panel that you couldn't have even imagined because they've created something spectacular out of your like 2-sentence description, you know?
And there's a fine line, right? Because you don't, I think, and actually there might be more overlap with film than I thought, but you almost want to like unlock an artist's imagination rather than tell them, be super prescriptive and tell them, oh, this is exactly what I want. Because then that's fine, but maybe you're missing out on something awesome.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Dan? Sorry.
For sure.
Sorry,
Adam, you can just leave. We're just going to talk.
I'm curious about like when you were writing West Coast Canuck, you mentioned these like public domain characters. How much of that was you bringing it to the table? Because you seem to know about the lore and the history of all these characters. So when you pitched
no pressure.
When you pitched it, what was your sort of, how much could you bring in of these other characters and how much was already decided for you?
But the characters were basically, I was given like, here's the 3 characters. What can we do with it? And then also like, oh, this is a potential setting. What can we do with that? And like, I brought in the bad guy character with help of the creative team that I was working with at the time. But mostly I found that I sort of guided the characters because I'm a big David Semple fan. As we discussed in the Lost interview, you know, I had written some fan fiction and approached Keith Morris, the editor at Chapter House at the time, with this fan fiction. And so I'm a David Semple fan, and I tried to bring the original David Semple's attitude to this to make it like true to the character, because he's different. In my breakdown of the Canucks earlier, I didn't mention David Semple, but he's like more of your like fun comic book character. Like he's kind of like making quips and kind of being a little silly, and he's a redhead like me, so I appreciate that. So, you know, I tried to bring in some of his character to this. Steeltown Hammer, he was already written, and so you know, I brought in just more of what they had already established for him. And Kip Keen, I honestly had no experience with at all, and read a few Golden Age comics for free online, and that's my entire experience with him. So you know, like, yeah, I as far as like those main characters, they were sort of all like, these are the characters we need for this setting. What can you do with them?
Cool. That's really neat.
So the thing also with, I would like to bring up some of the filmmakers I talked to on here, the COVID effect. When you had this rolling for you, Adrien, it was before COVID had really locked us in. You know, got screwed over with Free Comic Book Day last year and with the premiere of the comic. You know, he made it work. But what relationship did you have with the artist? Was most of that just via communication online, or have you guys have never met before? But have you even met the artist?
No, I mean, we had a Zoom chat, like basically this. It would be, but so it's so definitely a new experience for me of having to deal with like your biggest collaborator. And actually, I think the first 2 issues had been written before we'd ever actually seen each other Zoom face to Zoom face. So yeah, and he's not. I think he's down in South America in. Oh, I'm going to get this wrong. I want to say Argentina, and Esteban. If you're not, I apologize. But yeah, so it was super kind of cool when you're going, oh wow, you can get an artist from Canada, you can get an artist from Argentina, and you can bring them together, and that there is no limit anymore. But you definitely. And Dan, was it a similar thing with you? Were you kind of in the same room as the artist, or same?
First, I would just like to say shout out to Esteban, because the art is fantastic.
Yeah,
love the art in there. Mine originally started with the same creative team that we had for my Canadian Sentinel stories that we were doing for the True Patriot Presents digital series. So it was myself and then a couple guys from the West Coast who are fantastic guys, Justin Schaff and Donovan Yatsik. But then because of other projects, time constraints, those guys had to drop out of the project. And so, yeah, so it's a very similar situation. Like I haven't been able to meet the artist, and, you know, all the communication is pretty much email.
Yeah.
So, you know.
You also mentioned, though, Dan, that you are involved with doing the sort of junior reader one, the Captain Canuck Adventures.
Canuck Adventures, yes.
Yeah. But did you mention that you were involved with the art in that one?
No. Have you seen me draw?
That's well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen you draw. When I met you, we were doing radio. We didn't even see each other's faces.
We still are doing radio.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, nothing's changed. I'm filming on a terrible digital camera like I did with Adrien, and we're basically sitting here with headphones on like radio like 20 years ago. But with that though, that's had a on-demand release for the first part of that, has it not?
It has not.
No. Oh, okay.
It has not. No, this one was very limited. Limited to just a couple of conventions that we printed it for. It launched at the Tri-City Comic-Con in 2018, which was a convention in I can't remember the place. Tri-Cities. There was 3 cities, 3 of them. Tri-Cities, somewhere in Ontario.
Or near Zelda.
But it was a convention that was being put on by Richard Cumley and some other things, and Chapter House had a big presence there, and so we launched the comic there. I got to meet Jay Baruchel, which is pretty cool. He interviewed me for the Canuck Adventures, which is cool, but that interview no longer exists. It was lost into the internet somewhere.
Just like that one that we had earlier today.
With a bunch of lost interviews. There's
Well, then we're going to get to the other terrible point. I will post all the links for everyone to check out the stuff for a Comic House and for Leaf Gleason, so that you guys can also notice on this issue that if you do get the first part of West Coast Canuck, I'm pointing at the screen like you can see I'm doing that. But then at the bottom, you'll notice that issue 4 of Canuck Beyond, which is that the final?
It's the final one. So I will, while ours is wrapping up, Dan, yours is beginning. So it's like
Canadian
the circle of life.
Right.
The circle of life.
That's right. It's funny because I was looking for I went to Nexus because I'm in Kingston right now, and I went to Nexus Comics, and I was looking for your issue. So is yours, like you said, that limited to 2018 is still limited printing? Yeah.
It is, yes. Now I can get you a copy.
Oh man,
but
I've
got some copies.
Sounds good. Well, sorry, I don't want to the white cheddar.
No. But like I was messing around because these guys saw me post it. We talked about this. They watched the whole video earlier. We're gonna do this before me not paying for Zoom runs out. As I had this one's open. This is the one I used, but I'm gonna give away another pack of this to someone who leaves a comment. So maybe you might not want to comment, but here's a video of when I decided to use the KD flavor boost. There's not much more Canadian than that. If I had $1 million, I'd still eat it, but it would have gourmet cotton candy barba papa, or as I said earlier, barba papa. French Italian. Yeah. So here's what happened to me.
Making with just regular white cheddar from President's Choice, the cheap stuff, because the cheap stuff is always the best stuff. But going to a level of evil with adding Kraft Dinner's flavor boost cotton candy barba papa. Devil's macaroni. It says that you're supposed to use the normal
Mix it with a knife.
cheese, whatever you want to call that stuff, and then add.
I like the cat food in the background.
Cat food, that just becomes untasty. So you mix it normally, and then you add the evil. Evil.
Still grosses me out, even in round 2.
Oh, even the smell is unbearable.
What was the smell?
How gross it is. Just how much it's like
Chemical.
This knife.
Like
Chemical.
I can't even explain anything other than that.
All kinds of gross. And that's what we're looking at.
Oh, man.
It looks like kimchi, kind of. Like alien cartoon kimchi. It's not as terrible. It smells awful. Like, it smells terrible. But all it does is just kill the cheese. So it just tastes like noodles. Like, I mean, that stuff's covered. Like, there's a lot on there. That is purple, not even pink. That is purple. And, yeah, like, I could eat it.
We had so many great comments the first time.
I know, I feel like it'd be weird to just say them again.
I tasted the cheese earlier, so
I just want people to be grossed out and just watch my face. That's all. And it gives me time to look up a fact that I didn't know the last time we did this.
You can eat backup if you don't like it to go back to the other stuff. So he just chose to have some without it because she's smarter than me. Has better taste than me.
Is your video delayed a little bit? Because mine is.
It's probably the internet.
The internet, yeah.
Hopefully it records off my screen because my screen's making my face and my slopping sounds together.
Hopefully it records, period.
Yeah. We all heard that this time.
What's your view of it?
It got stuck to the back of my teeth.
I said it is disgusting. And you are going to waste it.
Probably.
Did you finish it?
Maybe
Yeah, I'm curious.
Real Canadian
I ate the bowl.
poutine flavor. Poo.
The bowl, not the food.
It tastes like
Right.
poo.
Yeah.
Can't be worse, can it? Should I mix Cheetos mac and cheese with Katie's Flavor Boost poutine? Or would that be bad?
Okay, so I have questions though.
Okay.
So you make it like normal, and then you just put this disgusting cotton candy flavoring on it. Like, what's the point of that? What? I'm confused. Like, why put cheese and then cotton candy flavoring? That sounds disgusting.
It's basically like the cheese is there, and then you sprinkle Kool-Aid on it. It's like you've opened up a Kool-Aid pack. It's not anything that would mix well enough.
Now, do you think it tasted like garbage because you bought the cheap Kraft dinner?
I purposely
It's a KD
like that
only
one.
KD. It's KD on KD, man.
maybe that's part of it. Well, and the thing is, it didn't even taste like shit. It tasted like nothing. It just sort of like made the cheese taste go away. But the smell was there, and it was there as soon as I opened it. It was like this fart of purple dust came out that smelled like Javex.
Yeah.
And I mean, this stuff's brand new, so it can't be old. It's like, that's not the problem. So, I mean, people can write in the comments and tell me if I should mix it with the Cheetos mac and cheese, which Dan has said he quite liked, and mix it with the even more Canadian poutine. If you think I should do that, or if you think I should just eat the Cheetos on its own. Dan said earlier that he thought maybe I should eat it on his own because he thought that the jalapeno one was really good. But then Adrien said, well, if we're going to do something funny, then fucking do it.
All due respect to you, Dan. I respect you, but this, I think we need to see the combination for I want to
leave your comments in there. Someone will win a pack of both of poutine and that. So if you're in the States, leave a comment. Maybe I'll mail one out to the States so you guys can be fucking grossed out too.
Hey Adam, what if I up the ante and say that if you eat both, I'll eat both?
Oh, okay. Well, this might be the deciding there, but again, I'm going to leave it up to the people to give them a chance. But then I might ignore it and do it anyway.
Why not?
So, guys, I'm not going to take up all the time that I did the last time by making you watch a bunch of weird things. Before, I'm going to give you some quick clips of terrible Canadian films that. This is what I do. I make people watch terrible things. I do screenings, and at the live events, I turn my seat so I can watch them in pain. Here's a clip of The Vindicator that you guys got to see for a second. The Canadian RoboCop, a guy who wears a robotic suit that melts and gets stuck onto him, and then he just gets really depressed. Here's a quick clip.
Dog is watching the screen.
I just want to wait to see his face.
Reminds me of me leaving work on a Friday.
And the bathroom after I've had the full poutine.
Also, what is going on? Is this like, what are these weird pillars that are smoke?
Yeah, pillars of flame.
Pillars of flame, it's just a Toronto thing.
Yeah, the place he was being built in just blew up, and he just left and just walked away down some random street.
What about his facial expression right there? Like the masked facial expression.
The mask is the most hilarious. Like
it's so just like I'm unimpressed.
I just did hear.
This really reminds me of like 80s Doctor Who.
I like that we have
probably a lower budget.
Here's a quick other clip from the movie. Well, I'm still gonna say yes. Even English budget in the 70s was more than Canada in the 80s, even in the tax shelter era. And here, from around the same year, around like 1988, is The Brain.
That sounds like you eating Kraft dinner.
Adrien and you.
Nom nom nom.
Again, no offense to him, but the way he's dressed, he could be the monster in a different movie. Like,
well, he kind of is.
Yeah.
That guy's like an orderly that like keeps all these people in mental patients and in a mental house, and he feeds them to the Brain. His name is George Buza.
Nice.
As I was saying, famously for me, he was the voice of Beast all through the 90s on the X-Men cartoon, since that was all voiced in-house in Canada. And so the Brain, not too much different. The main villain, the doctor that he works for in that, though, is the main villain from the Reanimator movies, who is basically playing the exact same character in those. So, and then I played you a clip from Dragon Hunt.
By the McNamara brothers? Is that
yes, they are two kung fu
What
twins.
a great guess. What a great guess, Adrien.
Yeah, it's like we went through this before. They're like two mini Chuck Norrises that teach you a lot about camping and the outdoors in their movies. And their main villains are played by guys who were in a lot of punk bands in Toronto in the 90s. So like certain real 90s Torontonians will recognize a lot of weird people in this. I believe the Dragons school is still existing, but I don't think the Magna Brothers bother teaching there anymore. So you used to be able to learn Kung Fu from them in downtown Toronto.
That's cool.
And we saved this just so I could see this ninja on fire. But just when we have enough time, playing a clip from a movie called Beyond the Seventh Door, which imagine if Tommy Wiseau from The Room starred in one of the Saw sequels.
Okay,
we're gonna end it with this. This is the only one that's actually available on a proper release. Intervision, I love those guys. Have released a bunch of weird Canadian stuff for an American company. Bless them for being so brave. But the actor who stars in this, who is sort of a weird Tommy Wiseau, I often see him around town, and it's always a treat. Here's just a straight clip from it, and we'll end it with this. Enjoy his wonderful acting.
Good sound. Perfect score.
Wendy! Talk to me, Wendy!
Gotta pad that shit out for Canuck, late night city TV. So we gotta stretch this movie out. They're two jewel thieves. They go to Casa Loma, which is supposedly a castle run by a millionaire, and they find there's traps and find people have died, but they need to learn clues and puzzles.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, go ahead, but be careful.
Does he have an accent?
Yeah, and nobody knows what it is.
Oh, he is then the Canadian Tommy Wiseau.
This one's longer than all the others.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Stop it, Wendy. Stop right now.
Tear me apart, please.
We'll take his advice and we'll stop it. We'll stop it right now. Actually, you know what? I think I got one more in here. The last clip from CHCH TV in 1981, shot on video camera again for CanCon. The people who made Hilarious House of Frightenstein made a late night movie called The Tower, which is basically Evil Seed, where a computer, a Commodore 64, decides to control a whole building in downtown Toronto and electrocute anyone who it doesn't feel it should exist there. In the middle of this office building is a public pool on like the 7th floor. I don't know why. And what happens when it decides it's time to close, but no one is left yet? They're still in the pool.
Energy potential 3,345 BTUs. Activate begin.
What did you do?
My hand! 245 BTUs have been gained. Unfortunately, this represents only 7.37436% of the potential. A faster transfer can result in more energy. This will be noted for the future.